A blessed morning to all of us. This is Gianni, and I'm going to preach about the topic on idolatry. So our title for this day is Why God Hates Idolatry. The issue of idolatry became prevalent at Mount Sinai when Moses spent 40 days communing with God in the mountain. Moses spent time with God when the Ten Commandments were given, but the Israelites became impatient and made for themselves an idol, a golden calf. That's written in Exodus chapter 30. In verse 9, the Lord said, "I have seen how stubborn and rebellious these people are." This was the time when the fierce anger of the Lord blazed against His chosen people. So the question now is, what is idolatry? It is the worship of a physical object as God. It is an immoderate attachment or devotion to something instead of devotion to God. God who is omnipresent. So why is God so angry at any act of idolatry? Exodus chapter 20 verse 5 clearly states that the Lord commanded the Israelites not to bow down to idols or worship them, for the Lord is a jealous God who will not tolerate any of your affection to any other gods. The first point here is God is a jealous God. He is not happy if you put your affection to something else aside from Him and make it a God. God looks at the heart. So if your heart is more affectionate to object than the real one, our God knows it. And that is the reason enough why many Israelites did not make it to the promised land. God's punishment was He laid the sins of the parents upon their children. The entire family is affected. Even children in their third and fourth generations of those who rejected God. Number 2 point here is God is incomparable to anyone or anything. In Isaiah chapter 40 verses 18 to 19, to whom can you compare God? What image can you find to resemble Him? Can He be compared to an idol formed in a mold, overlaid with gold, decorated with silver chains? God is a supreme being. Nothing and no one can be compared to Him. The Lord has no equal. He held the oceans in His hand. Who else has measured the heavens with His fingers? Who else knows the weight of the earth and the mountains and hills on a scale? Who is able to advise the Spirit of the Lord? Who knows enough to give Him advice or teach Him? Does He need instruction about what is good? Did someone teach Him what is right or show Him the path of justice? No, for all nations of the world are but a drop in a bucket. There are nothing more than the dust on the scales. Those questions were written in Isaiah chapter 40 verses 12 to 15. So, if you're giving an importance to an idol, it's as if you have compared God. And that is a big insult to our God. Number 3 point here, God is spirit. Not made of wood, of gold, silver, ceramic, or cement. John chapter 4 verse 24, these are the very words of Jesus Christ. For God is spirit. So those who worship him must worship in spirit and in truth. So God is spirit, cannot be seen by human eyes, cannot be touched, and can only be felt like the wind. So any God that is made of wood, of gold, of silver, of ceramics or cement is not God. Isaiah chapter 44 verse 14, it is written here, he cuts down cedars, he selects the cypress and oak, then he uses part of the wood to make fire. With it he warms himself and bakes his bread. Then yes, it's true, he takes the rest of it and makes himself a god to worship. He makes an idol and bow down in front of it, worshiping and praying to it. Rescue me, he says. You are my God. This is what the Lord Israel King and Redeemer, the Lord of Heaven's army, said in verse 18. Such stupidity and ignorance. Their eyes are closed and they cannot see. Their minds are shut and they cannot think. The person who made the idol never stops to reflect. Why? It's just a block of wood. I burned half of it for heat and use it to bake my bread and roast my meat. How can the rest of it be God? Should I bow down to worship a piece of wood? I pray that you would come to realize that God hates idolatry because it deceives people to worship it in God's representation. No one and nothing, can represent God here in earth except his only begotten Son, Jesus Christ. So anyone or anything that you consider a representation of God except Jesus is a fake. Let's avoid God's wrath. Worship only God who is in every place, wherever you're at. I challenge you, make a decision to go straight to God. In prayer, praise, and worship in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. And expect to receive the blessings of God to you up to your 1,000 generations. Believe it.